when I think about the title of this conversation, I want to just question for a second why companies should be involved in shaping the future of education. I want to just ask each of you, we'll start with you, Clayton. What is your argument for why companies should be heavily involved in shaping the future of education?
Thanks, John. And firstly, I will just say it's an honor and pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate the invite from the ministry. I think it's a responsibility for companies to invest in education and shape the future of education. And if I reflect on Cisco, as we work with organizations and government institutes across the world, and we develop and design advanced technology, we need to ensure that we're also providing the right level of digital skills and economic empowerment to the communities and the people. Because if you go too fast in advanced technology, I think you further remove people from the opportunity and deepen the digital divide and not create an inclusive community. So that's basically why I think it's important. I think it's a responsibility for companies, tech companies, to invest in education.
Can you talk a little bit about the Cisco Academy? It's some sort of networking academy that's going to train 1 billion people. Talk a little bit about that.
Sure, happy to do so. So the Cisco Networking Academy is an education program developed by Cisco Systems that develops online courses in various forms such as networking, security, and wireless. John, that's what ChatGPT says. So let me translate a little bit for you. So essentially, we focus on empowering educators, learners, and communities through the power of technology and education to really drive an inclusive future for all. And I think this is our purpose statement. Our purpose statement as a company is to power an inclusive future for all. The Cisco Networking Academy has been in existence since 1997. We've trained since inception 17.5 million people across the world. We celebrated 25 years in existence through 11,800 academies across 190 countries. And I think we have a lot more to do. I think as technology starts to advance and to develop, we have responsibility, as I mentioned, to train and educate the communities. What we focus on is meeting learners where they are, and we consistently looking at our program, the design of a program, and ensuring that we develop program and the course content that caters for everybody, marginalized communities, advanced levels, right? So that's what we do in the Cisco Networking Academy. It is a flagship program at Cisco. We're looking to continue the investment across the Middle East, Africa. We're looking at deploying our academies in very unique communities. As far as deploying it is in prisons and ensuring that we're giving equal opportunity to everybody to participate in the economy and provide opportunity.
Marc, what is your chief argument for why companies should be involved in shaping education?
Well, I can't speak for all companies, but for Microsoft, there's 2 real reasons. Number one, as you said, societal responsibility, of course. We should be doing that. Technology can help students. There are tools, we actually incorporate learning tools in Microsoft 365, which actually help children with dyslexia, for example, so technology can help. But the other important thing is that by the year 2025, all manual work will be automated. So we have a responsibility for making sure that the next generation workforce has the key skills that employers are going to need.
Marc?
I don't know about 2025. I don't know that in 2025 we won't have any manual work. But I do think obviously society is changing rapidly. I think in Google's culture, education is just such in its DNA. It started in a university at Stanford. It started in a garage. And there's always been a mantra for the nearly 12 years I've been in the company of whatever we do, is there anything or collateral benefit we can do in education? Can we throw it for free in education as well? Like, we have a very different approach to education than other companies. A lot of other companies in the sector, they have it as a vertical of their kind of commercial go-to-market teams, which I think is perfectly legitimate, by the way. But in Google, it's actually always been a part of more as engineering or a part of corporate social responsibility. So we felt our responsibility of giving back is huge, and I think that's common with companies like Microsoft to Cisco as well. And I think, honestly, and we see this in a lot of the research, and even the OECD says it as well, is the collaboration between public government and the private sector, it's paramount in every industry if we are to be successful.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to put each of you on the spot, and I want you to tell me, one, the most exciting thing that your company is doing related to the future of education, and two, something that you're seeing out on the landscape that excites you that is not happening maybe at your company. Clayton, I'm going to ask you to go first.
So I think one of the exciting things we're doing is evolving our platform. Traditionally, our Networking Academy platform has been really focused on partnering with academic institutes, and it's almost like a blended learning curriculum. We now created a platform where we're offering content directly to people and citizens. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to accelerate job creation and empowerment. And the skills that we're offering is almost like a bridging course for you to do something further, but also gives you an opportunity for work, right? I think something that we're not doing fast enough is embracing AI. To be honest, I don't think we're at the forefront of it, but we're certainly taking some of the technologies and embedded it into our curriculum. That's something we're not doing, and something we need to start accelerating. So that's what I'll say.
You talked a little bit about in the first conversation we had earlier. Talked a lot about assessment. How do you assess whether these programs that Cisco is involved in are making a societal impact?
So that's an important question. I think if you look at any indicators, and there are many reports, World Economic Forum has the Future Jobs Report, which is interesting, and it talks about this division of labor between people and machine learning, and how many jobs will be displaced. And it talks about a staggering number of 85 million, and at the same time, how many jobs will be created across economies. I think it's critically important, though, to remember that the job opportunity is important. I think that's what I would say is the fundamentals of it. At Cisco, I would say that when we focus on creating content, we really focus on the job creation piece. We want to make sure that job creation is at the heart of the content. When we create the skills program, we want to link it to employers. We have an interesting program called Talent Bridge that links employees to educators in the program. It's really built into the program. So that's one of the flagship ones that we would see.
Marc, something your company is doing to move forward on reshaping education, and something you're seeing out there on the landscape that you're excited about?
Well, I think the topical discussion so far today has all been about ChatGPT. And as everyone probably is aware, Microsoft are big investors in OpenAI, and we're currently integrating ChatGPT in all of our products. In fact, the first one that I've seen come through is Bing Search. And I've been using Bing Search for a little while to understand what's the power of ChatGPT. And it really is phenomenal. And I think it's going to change an awful lot of how teachers teach and students learn going forward, for sure. They're obviously one of the key things that we need to do, and perhaps we haven't got a plan for, which we're building right now, is how do you train students to use artificial intelligence? Everyone talks about, the fact that it's available, but how do you train students to use it and give them the skills that they use it effectively and efficiently? And I think that's something that we're working on right now. And We think it's really important, obviously, but I think that the future is looking really bright.
Yeah. Mark number 2.
Mark number 1. I have a less optimistic message. I have quite a bit of controversial message. I'm really worried. I'm really worried that we are technologizing the conversation about education. I think in education conferences, we talk more about technology than we talk about pedagogy. And I very deeply worried about it. I even think it's a predictor of that things are not going to improve if we don't change that. And I think it's our responsibility, it's my responsibility to share that message. I think you'll be very surprised if in a medical congress, everyone talks about the new MRI machine and how they're putting in every one of the consults, but rather how we diagnose better. And obviously technology has a huge role in that, but it's a role. It's not a leading, it's not the present, it's not the cornerstone. I think one of the biggest issues we have, if we're actually thinking about learning outcomes and, and to the bottom core, what education is, which is developing a brain. Like we detach education from medicine, and I think we should get a little bit closer. Education's real assessment, and I love how you say it's not the future of assessment, but it's assessment. You said that in the previous panel, is to develop the brain, to develop a healthy brain that can tomorrow get ChatGPT, the next AI chatbot, whatever technology comes forward. I'm not keen of obsessing about that technology. And I think the main issue is that we're in a classroom, in the typical classroom setting, we are teaching and educating for the average student. Mm-hmm. And guess what? The average student does not exist. So everyone in a classroom thinks the class is going a little bit too fast or a little bit too slow. Yeah. So I think the role of technology, whether it's AI, generative AI, or whatever it is to personalize education. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I can go elaborate on that, but I'll make sure
I want you to elaborate on that because I recently interviewed the chief technology officer at OpenAI, and I asked her a question, just a general question about what societal problem generative AI is solving right now, and she said, personalized education is the way, it will solve some problems with education by allowing the system, the education system to personalize, tailor lessons, etc. She didn't go into, she's a technologist. She's not an educator. She didn't go into great detail on that. But I'm curious what all of you would say to that. How would you tailor, where do we go with this idea? Mark.
Well, actually, there was a Reid Hoffman, who sits on the OpenAI board, actually did a podcast where he was interviewing ChatGPT. It was an interesting interview, and it was asking many of these same questions. And personalized learning is the key thing. So what does personalized learning mean? Today, you have a teacher that stands up in front of the classroom and delivers education, delivers learning. But of course, all students learn at their own pace. And you can leave some students behind. So the idea of having a personalized learning plan with your own teacher assistant for every single student, that's what they mean by personalized learning. It can identify where a student needs extra help, amend some of the curriculum and the content to support the curriculum, and provide assessment and give guides to that particular student on what they could be doing. And most importantly, it does it in a different way. So for example, if I was a student and and the way I like to learn is watching YouTube videos, ChatGPT would look at it and say, actually, this student likes watching videos. Now let's start giving videos to them, because we also know they like skateboarding. So let's try to bring in skateboarding into the curriculum, which delivers the right content for what they want to learn. So it becomes much more engaging, much more personalized, and I think it's really important.
But does that take away from the group activity of learning, the collective sort of, I enjoy, maybe some of you can figure this out, but I always enjoyed conversation in class and the debate and looking at an idea from all different angles and discussing it. Does this new way take away from that.
It shouldn't take away from it. And in fact, in this particular interview, and by the way, anyone wants to read this, I will post it on my LinkedIn this weekend. So send out a note to me and follow me, and you'll see all of the interview. It's very interesting. But what it says is that because we have all the communications and collaboration tools right now. I mean, in the pandemic, obviously here in the UAE, all the schools went on to Office 365 within a week. So they could connect and work with each other as teams. But a lot of what's been said earlier today is the need for 21st learning skills, which is computational thinking, teamwork, problem solving. In fact, ChatGPT actually helps students in that way, that they actually try to guide them in the right way to actually look at those things. So it enhances the ability of those 21st century skills that all employers want from their students today.
Yeah. Clayton, how would you tailor?
Yeah, I want to really speak on this notion on the technology democratizing education. I think in developing countries, it's an important concept. If you think about ChatGPT and many technologies, even our online platforms, you really need any device, and you don't really need fast-speed internet. You just really need good internet for you to connect to the platform. But if you look at education systems and teachers, it's not equal across the world and in different countries. But if you look at the technology like OpenAI, it actually democratizes education, and it brings the content to the people, even the people that do not have the economic opportunity. I think that's the important aspect. Now, potential is equal, but economic opportunity is not always equal, right? So that's the important aspect. So if you start to provide that type of technology to marginalized communities, I think it's going to be incredible. I think the ideas that will stem from that particular communities that are really challenged in life, and they are the most creative thinkers, if you think about it, right? So access to that technology will just open up the world, and I think it'll solve a lot more challenges that we have in the world faster.
Marc, number one, I want to hear more about some of the risks and dangers and things that we should look out for as we think about incorporating technology into education.
How much time we have again? I think you know that there's SaaS, software as a service, and we have this kind of nice acronyms. I talk of TAM, which is tech as a miracle. You see where I'm going? Yeah. I think, again, it comes down to the same word, right? If we're talking about, for example, if I've talked with the Ministry of Education and most of the conversation is dominated by technology, I know we're on the wrong kind of line of thinking. So, for example, let's give an example, right? ChatGPT, I don't think there's been a single contribution in this conference that doesn't mention ChatGPT. Let's talk about ChatGPT, not from only a funny, let me run my speech kind of way, but as in what actually is it, right? ChatGPT is a large language model, LLM. So ChatGPT knows how to talk. It doesn't know how to think. Yeah. And it certainly doesn't know anything about educating. Doesn't know about the neuroscience milestones, doesn't know about the pillars of education or intelligence, doesn't know about remediation or intervention or when to do each. It knows absolutely zero. It doesn't understand those concepts, right? So in Google, we've thought about, because we have obviously been leading AI. Even ChatGPT is based on a paper that we released, I think is in 2017. So we've been the leaders in AI and AI first culture, I think. Maybe a little bit arrogant to say that, but I think it's fair to say. And we've been thinking about how to implement AI in a much smarter way, in a much more, smarter maybe not the right word, in a much more focused and particular way. So for example, AI and machine learning can help with remediation for students. That means when a student struggles with an exercise, if you can understand that student struggles and give remediation, the exact reteaching content, exact to the struggle that he or she has in that same second, the impact of that is actually astronomical. So with practice sets is a feature we have in Google Classroom, which is the hub of learning for us. We already have that. We have practice sets, and students can, especially in math, have remediation in the second, which is something a teacher could never do real time, 30 students at a time. And with predictive analytics, which again is another branch of AI, we can actually see in the future. We've been implementing systems with different school systems where a teacher can know with over 86% of certainty the next grade a student will have in the next exam, weeks away. So the teacher can literally see the future Right? We're actually talking about seeing the future and can act now and change the future, which is the kind of things I like to see in education. It's like, tell me how, exactly you're changing the development of that brain and when are you doing it, as opposed to, TAM, if we may coin that term.
I'm wondering, is your point of view rare at Google? I mean, you seem to have a very technology can solve problems, but it can't solve everything. It's not a miracle.
It isn't, and that's why we have things as practice sets, because what I've seen is in the last, I think maybe 5 years at Google for Education, there's been heated debate internally about the role of technology. And we try to, for example, like Clayton mentioned about democratizing education, and I've been saying that on stage for many years. What we realized is the latest OECD research says that all the MOOCs and online education has actually done the opposite. It breached the divide because most of the people accessing to the Harvard X and Coursera's and edX are people with access, not people without access. So it's actually pretty controversial. And the role is like there's been a group of intelligence people in the education team that are sort of neuroscientists that are starting, in my opinion, to do what is one of the biggest contributions of value to the development of new products, I think.
I think what everyone's been saying is that artificial intelligence can democratize education and learning because you get personal learning assistance for everybody. That's the interesting thing. Today, you typically have a teacher that will stand in front of the class and have 30 students they have to manage. Imagine if every single one of those students had their own personal learning assistant. That's how it democratizes. So that's a good thing, I think, overall. And I think that's what everyone was saying about democratization of education. But, let's stop talking about ChatGPT. It's an engine for artificial intelligence. But there are lots of other ways that we can use artificial intelligence. And you're right, prediction of when you're going to have dropouts of students. We can predict up to 90% at this point that when students are going to drop out of class. That's very useful analytical information for planning in an education school system. One of the things that I think is important to say, though, is, first of all, we, as a company, I wouldn't call our division. We have in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, for example, where I specialize, we have about 225 people in education. We don't classify ourselves as the IT team. We are the education team inside an IT company, and I think there's a big difference in that. We have to start to look at how you can leverage IT within an education context. And so we've identified 16 different components that you have to look at when you're actually doing digital transformation of education. And it's really important that we understand all of those 16, because if you just do one or two of them, you're not really transforming education. And artificial intelligence is really just one item out of 16 things that you have to do to change.
Yeah. If I'm a teacher hearing some of this, I'm thinking, my job is going to change very quickly, very soon. What are some things that teachers might do to kind of prepare for this future that we're talking about? Marc, number one. How should teachers think about this new future? And are they possibly out of a job? Are we going to have AI teaching everyone and just?
Yeah, one of the main things that teachers have told me, it's their fear that Google or other technologies will replace their job, and I've just been so emphatic to say that it's just extremely away from reality, because we need a lot more teachers, not less. And the future of AI is actually not necessarily to replace a human, but to empower a human that's using AI to do more. And we see that everywhere else, right? So, in fact, we see research from, for example, one of the latest McKinsey reports on the future of labor and work, that there's a net positive creation of jobs as digitalization and AI replaces. The big issue, and here you come back to your question, is that 50% of the new job creation is highly skilled. Right, and that's the challenge of education, to teach people and prepare people for that reality. And one of the things is, because you say teachers, but we put a lot on teachers. Teachers need a lot of help. One of the things that teachers don't have is time to do their job, right? So we need a lot more time. I know we just released some piece of research. It's called The Future of Education. It's a Google report, 3 parts. I think it's the most comprehensive piece of research we've done. I'm really proud of it. one of the key things that we've researched is that AI can save up to 13 hours of teacher time a week with existing technologies that we have today. Like we could actually plan with this with the Ministry of Education tomorrow. That's equivalent to hiring 30% more teachers in a country like this with no labor cost. That's the kind of insane transformation we're looking at, right?
But with personalized education, you're also talking about, Marc needs one lesson and Clayton needs another lesson and then the other Marc needs a different lesson, and I need to, as the teacher, figure out what everyone needs, everyone's tailored lesson plan.
Completely. Yeah, the role of the teacher, I think this is by no means a Google thing, right? I think generally, I imagine we'll all agree, the teacher's traditional role has been a lot about having the information and sharing it, right? Having that knowledge and transmitting it. And that has become very non-interesting and non-valuable because information is everywhere now. The question is how we use it. So when we partner with ministries of education and Google, we talk about technology. It has a huge role in all these things that we're saying, but mostly what we're talking is putting the teacher at the epicenter of that transformation and spending vast amount of money and resources from our international experience on long-term professional development plans. Because it doesn't matter all the technology in the world you can put in a classroom, technology is not going to make a classroom great. A great teacher is.
I agree. I agree. I mean, technology will never replace good teachers. That's for sure.
No, it won't.
It's just that the role of teachers is going to change. So rather than being the sage on the stage, they will be the guide on the side, and they will help plan a student's learning and guide them, coach them in the learning process, rather than just delivering learning. That's all going to change, and it will change really, really quickly. So what has to happen, and why I think it's such a great thing that we're in partnership here with the ministry to change education using ChatGPT, is the fact that we can quickly demonstrate to the rest of the world how important it is using this technology, and training teachers to use it is going to be very important.
So give me a sense of what this new classroom actually looks like, and what happens in this new kind of classroom every day. So if I have a young child and I'm bringing her to school, what would be different in this kind of new vision, where the teacher is the guide on the side rather than the sage on the stage?
Well, you wouldn't have traditionally desks facing towards the front of the classroom with a teacher. It will be much more open, relaxed, much more open spaces. Teacher learning centers where groups can collaborate and work together on projects within the class. You would have a concept of flipped classrooms where students will actually be working on projects at home, and they come into the class and actually talk about what they've done, rather than a teacher saying, this is what you need to learn today. So I think you're going to see the schools become much more flexible using open spaces. And also the way that they deliver the curriculum is going to change quite a bit. And you will actually encourage students to think about their learning and work in teams with other groups and actually develop the curriculum and do the work practices and then come into the school and talk about it. That's going to be a big different change that's going to happen in schools.
Sounds like fun.
But that's the whole idea.
Yeah.
Happy children are going to learn more, learn better.
And it also sounds a lot like the way that workplaces are reshaping themselves, where you don't come in and sit at your desk, you find the people you're working with on a project, and you all go maybe sit on a couch.
And we all do desk share pretty much these days in the large buildings. It's the same thing within schools. You just find your own working environment you're happy with and do your work.
Clayton, have you thought any about how schools might change and tailor themselves?
Firstly, I'll have to say that a new school will look nice and shiny with lots of Cisco technology in it. I'm kidding. I think the school system and the classroom system will fundamentally change into facilitation and labs and experiential learning. To be honest, I think the traditional classroom where it's at today I don't think will exist moving forward. To be honest, I think if you look at technology now, and if equal access provided to people, I think the classroom will exist just for collaboration and facilitation, as opposed to traditional learning.
If I may add to that, because I think it's really important. And shameless plug, but in my TEDx talk, which is "Will Schools Exist 50 Years from Now?" I tackle exactly this, right? And I think as the other Marc was saying, the same way we have co-working environments, I predict we'll have co-learning environments. And one of the things that I haven't heard anyone say around this, I'm sure someone has, don't quote me on that, but is that ministers of education in general are focusing on young adults and kids, and I think that's going to be a mistake because we're going to have different, several career changes in our life. You were saying you're not afraid of your job, but your job might actually dramatically change as you know, in the next couple of decades. And I think the Ministry of Education should start thinking at every human in their scope and how do they teach and educate them in their different moments in their life, because it's going to dramatically change the needs, right?
I like the sound of that. Well, that's all we have time for, unfortunately. This is a great conversation. Thank you all, Marc, and Clayton.
Thank you
for chatting with us today.
Thank you.
And thank all of you. Thank you.